Baby Driver is directed by Edgar Wright and stars Kevin Spacey, Jamie Foxx, Jon Bernthal, Jon Hamm, Lily James and a few other people. Guys, you will not realise how excited for this movie I was. I mean, as soon as I knew it was a thing, it immediately became my most anticipated movie of the year, up there with the likes of Logan. And I have every right to be excited because Edgar Wright is one of my favourite directors working today, and I don't think he's made a bad movie to date. I mean, all of his movies are amazing, and they're some of my favourites. Like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is one of my favourite movies ever. And the Cornetto trilogy, they're just as good as Scott Pilgrim, but they're good for their own reasons. But all of his movies are amazing, and I really badly wanted to see Baby Driver to see whether his streak of awesome movies would continue. And luckily it has, because Edgar Wright's knocked it out of the park again. Actually, no, let me rephrase that. He's not just knocked it out of the park, he's knocked the ball into the stratosphere and he's knocked a satellite out of orbit. That is how good this movie is. First of all, I have to obviously talk about Edgar Wright's direction of this movie, and it's fucking amazing. It's very fast-paced, and you never feel like there are any moments that slow down or drag in the movie, and I absolutely love that about not just this movie, but pretty much all of his previous movies. They never let up, and you feel like you're there in the moment, and even though there is not that much downtime, you're okay with it because you're just enjoying this relentless ride that you really don't want to end. And this style, blended together with extremely fast editing and really gorgeous, slick, stylish looking cinematography, makes for a very gorgeous looking movie that honestly is amazing to look at. Some people may call Edgar Wright's movies style over substance, but I really don't see that, because I do watch some movies where it is literally just cool visuals but nothing else. This is cool visuals and a lot more. There's a lot more going on in the background, there's a lot more in terms of deeper messages, and there is a lot more to look into when you watch the movies he's made repeatedly, and therefore I don't think his movies are style over substance. I mean, yeah, they're stylish as hell and they're incredibly fun to watch, but there's a lot more to it if you watch them repeatedly. And I've got to mention that the soundtrack in this movie is incredible, so much so that it actually feels like a part of the movie. Like, sometimes you can have movies that have a bit too much of an overbearing soundtrack, and then you have movies where the music's just there every so often. The music in this movie feels like it's a part of the story and a part of Baby's character, so it has every right to be there. Even though I know some people may get a bit annoyed with the amount of music in this movie, I was absolutely fine with it, because all the choices that they made in terms of what music they used, I loved. And this leads on to my other point, which is the music blended with Edgar Wright's style makes for some amazing scenes, especially some awesome car chases, which I've got to admit are some of the best I've ever seen since probably Mad Max Fury Road. These car chases in this movie are amazing to watch. You can actually tell what's happening on the screen. No shaky cam whatsoever. A lot of fluid, smooth movements with the camera that you can actually see what the fuck is actually happening. And I'm so pleased to see that. The acting in this movie is great from everyone. Ansel Elgort is really, really good as Baby, the main character. I didn't know what he was going to be like going into the movie, which kind of made me a bit skeptical, because the only thing I know him from is The Fault in Our Stars. But he blew me away in this movie. He's very quiet, he doesn't talk that much, but you don't really want him to, because he's a very privatised person. But that being said, his music is his escape, and it's the only thing that makes him does his job well. And you can kind of see that in his character. And also, even though he's a getaway driver and he's doing bad things, so to speak, he's not a bad person, and I love the way they explored that in this movie. He's just happens to be doing a job that you know, he shouldn't be doing. Kevin Spacey I thought was really good as this like criminal boss character. I thought every time he was on screen he took control of the situation, and that's pretty much what Kevin Spacey does best. Jamie Foxx was as cool as ever. He's very, you know, suave, but he's also kind of a dick at times in the kind of way that is just typical cool Jamie Foxx way. I also really like Jon Hamm's character as well, who I thought partnered with his wife made for an interesting couple as well, and I thought their dynamic and their input on the movie was pretty well handled. Lily James as Baby's love interest I thought was also very good, and the love story in the movie never gets too in the way of things, I thought, which I thought was a good way of handling it, because sometimes you can have a solid action movie happening or a fun movie happening, and then the love story comes in and just kind of overtakes the movie you were just watching. Whereas with this movie, they kind of perfectly go hand in hand. You have the heist elements and you have the love element, and they just kind of go perfectly together to the point where they do end up interlinking later on in the movie in a very seamless way. Also, that being said, there are a lot of moments throughout the plot that kind of surprised me because they didn't go the way I thought they were going to go. There are a lot of moments that are purely dependent on how a certain character reacts and does things. And the way they handled that, I thought was really well executed. Now, the only nitpicks I had with the movie were initial ones that I felt during the movie. But the more I think about it, the more I've kind of, you know, let them go. For instance, the nitpicks I had were that the middle half of the movie did feel like it slowed down a bit compared to the other halves of the movie, and the way the movie ended was slightly abrupt. But that being said, the more I thought about it, it actually works. The middle section of the movie kind of has to be as slow as it is for certain things to happen, and in the long run I actually think it works well. I mean, it doesn't grind to a halt, but it just feels significantly slower than the rest of the movie, but I actually think it works. And in regards to the ending I don't really think they could have done much else with. So the way they ended it and where they ended it, I thought was the best place they could have possibly ended it. So yeah, with all that being said, Baby Driver abso-fucking-lutely gets a 10 out of 10. I'm so glad Edgar Wright has made another great movie, and if he keeps this up, he's honestly going to be one of the best directors to ever live, because he's just going to keep making great movies. So guys, that was my review of Baby Driver. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.